Hi, I'm Chris from airwindows, and I have a very strange plugin for you today. It might just be what some people would really like, or it might just be a completely insane idea that won't work for anybody. But why don't I just show you what the heck I'm talking about here? This is called SurgeTide, and it's based on the idea, it's a couple of different ideas. The idea of a compressor with multiple scales of attack and recovery, and also on the idea of a compressor with very slow attacks and release. But what I've got is something where you can kind of clamp the sound out with this thing called surge node. Surge rate determines how quickly stuff happens, and then most of the work is done with dry wet. Here's what it does. This is one of my crazy tracks. I got 3 different tracks to show you this. Turn surge node up. You notice that it's squishing the sound down, it's compressing. If I push it farther, I hit the node. Hitting the node means it's completely silencing the sound at loud hits. And you can take something like this and sort of accentuate the beat using it. But here's how you magnify that. The idea of SurgeTide is that it's capable of squishing the sound out like that and then mimicking the kind of thing that people do with sidechain compression in EDM, where it's this big pumping effect. SurgeTide is designed so that you can make it swing harshly up to hit the beats with a lot of aggression. Now the trick with that is this is very hard to do. There's going to be some mixes where it's not going to work at all. And with this mix, that's my cat, hi. With this mix you can kind of do it. If you go past it, you get a weird effect. Also, you end up distorting, as you can plainly see. I'm going to just throw my clipper on there, seeing as I know it will distort. Clip only, that's a freebie. Just a moment. Hi. Excuse me. Okay. Sorry, that was important. I'm probably not even going to edit it out. Your Patreon donations help support that cat. Back to the music. So if you push surge node up, you can sort of blow up the output of everything and have really bad effects. But if it goes right up to the surge node, the rate starts to become really important. Here's what you get. If you slow it down, you get this squish effect going. But if you speed it up beyond that point, you start getting it where it's going to swing up into the dynamic. Maybe I back this off a little bit more. You start getting an effect where the release of the compressor swings up into the impact and makes it louder. Let me scroll back a little bit. And again, this is a very intense node, so I might want to back it even farther off. get that canceling out. And we're starting to really hear the drums come through that way. Let's back it down again. Now that is some pretty strong drum impacts happening here. And a pretty aggressive sounding compression. I'll remind you that what we got here is this. This is what it really sounds like. Turn on SurgeTide. It's doing this thing where it's emphasizing the backbeat hugely, and the way this is done is not entirely through dry wet. Mostly it's about finding that surge node at whatever level, at whatever volume level we're using, and then just backing it away from the node until it's not doing anything strange. I got the surge rate going very fast here, so what I'll do is experiment and see what it sounds like. If we slow it right down, we'll get this. And you can slow it down even more. Again, as compared to dry sounds like this. One of the things happening here is that the time constants of this compressor, if you want to even call it a compressor, because it's become something strange and different, the time constants are slower than usual. They're so slow that I'm actually using long double variables to hold them so that the slow build up can be incredibly smooth and subtle. And it's got that ability to suppress things from here. It's doing almost a little bit of an automatic gain control-y thing. And then when we get that going, go about halfway back to the screen. You can kind of hear how it's swinging, it's doing a thing. I slow the swing down. It's much slower. This is changing the way that the whole body of the track moves. And you can exaggerate it like this. But really the way of getting a reasonable response is backing off on the surge node. Dry wet is just sort of to emphasize that. You can have that, and bring some of the dry in there. Or even make an artificial sound by doing this with it. Now here we've got a big emphasis on the kick drum. It's not so much there in the raw track. When we kick this in, there's this big emphasis on the kick, so let's speed that up a little bit. This is not your usual compressor. There's a lot going on here just by virtue of how slow it's running and the very strange ballistics of it. I don't think anything else quite has the ballistics of this because this is an experiment. It's multiple stages of ballistics affecting each other and is really kind of awkward to work with. That's why I'm giving you this video and trying to help with that a little bit. I'll bounce over to another track which is more electronic in nature. And this is what it really sounds like. And you can see that I'm already right in the middle of the surge node. It's just canceling out sometimes. Like around here, it'll just freeze up completely. So I back it off. We can plainly hear it working. If you turn it off, it's a lot bigger. And then we try to find how it moves within this track. I'll accentuate it a little bit. Maybe this is moving a little slower, so... So I slowed down the surge rate a little bit. And one thing we notice with this... Well, let's slow it down a little more. Listen to the extreme lows of the kick, because what I've got with the raw signal, the raw sound, is that's a low kick, but when I turn this on, it becomes ridiculous. It's all super, super duper lows, and I should be able to speed them up using surge rate. And I gotta back off the surge node because it's getting a little too intense here. We can feel the sort of kicks coming a little faster. But I think I'm gonna slow it back down again. It a little more. So that it's acting really weird, and then give it some dry. Now that's a really huge aggressive kick drum. It's moving a lot of air, it's being very athletic. And again, it's compared with this, which is the raw. Much more up front. You turn this on, and you get a whole sort of floaty feel going on. And then, if this seems too exaggerated, another way of doing it is you go all wet, and then just back the surge node right off again. And then what we've got is a sound that's very similar to the raw sound, and we sort of dialed it in using the surge node so that it's doing the right thing. I think I might want to speed it up a tiny bit like that. But when you bring in the surge node from nothing, you can sort of control everything and make the body of the track move a certain way, as I will demonstrate here. There's obvious. So it's got this whole sort of gain controlling thing. It's probably also a good way of, say, if you were trying to use it, I'll switch this over to 80 Clips X. I know I haven't released it yet. If I reach $800, I start releasing these, so there's something to be gained from that. If I wanted to make this absurdly, unbelievably loud, one thing I could do is go here, get the surge node going, and then just start boosting. Okay, it's breaking up now. That's a little extreme. Okay, you can hear that it's kind of breaking up and being distorty, but all the same, using SurgeTide to sort of restrict things. I'll demonstrate it again, I think. Here, let's turn up all of the retains. AD clip has this way of exaggerating loudness. That's kind of what it's for, so we'll throw that in there. And then I'm going to start using SurgeTide, and let's back this off too. And well, let's fatten the body all the way up as well, and not soften the clip so much. But we're giving this 4 dB of gain, and it's already like right up to the iron bar. This technically doesn't go any louder than this, but here's what happens when we try. Let's make it 5 dB. Let's be extreme. Here's what happens when I start using Surge Node to pull some of the gain out of this while leaving it pushing AD clip so hard. So that's muting it. And now I'm going to dial it back a little bit just to get into that zone. It doesn't really want to be 5 dB. Give it a little more. And then we start putting in dry just to the point of where it's getting ungainly. That's how you maximize the heck out of extreme, ridiculous sub-bass content if you're willing to just go all the way with it. And again, AD clip will be coming out, but I gotta hit my funding goal for that. And SurgeTide is acting as a kind of conditioner so that the rest of it, like if I turn it directly over to the AD clip at this level, here's what you get. It's huge, but it's really uncontrolled. And we're keeping some of the intensity there. So let's make that go away for the moment. And lastly, there are some tracks that it's just not doing all that much at all. Here's one from earlier. It's kind of a synthy thing. You can hear that it's got that low kick going on. But what this one does is it resists SurgeTide a little bit. It doesn't have quite the same degree of swing to it. It doesn't have the background. Both the Wilds and Alien Kittens have a huge amount of background going on. And this is a lot drier, so you don't get as much of the effect. It's full wet. And we're hardly hearing anything. We're hearing something there. I think this is also coming a little slower than everything else, so if I increase the surge rate, there's a little attack on the kick, but we're almost getting a little note in here, actually. You can hear some of this effect, but it's not that intense. It's really difficult to get that going. I've got it noted out here. What we're hearing there is the node kicking in and suppressing stuff to the point of silence, but really this one is, in some ways it's almost a good thing because you got this going on, it's doing what it's supposed to do, but you can't hear it. You can't hear it doing it. So we'll pull it back a little bit. And then what I'll do is I'll just switch it off between dry and wet. Or I can do that with the fader even. And here we've got this sound going in dry, but when we turn it to full wet, it sounds pretty similar. It's just stepping on it in this very subtle way. Maybe I'll pack it off a little bit further. You turn it off, and it's bigger, but we're not hearing that much of an effect going on here. And the reason is all of these sounds are very staccato. It doesn't have a big sort of ambient reverby space that you can hear it sort of swelling up or whooshing back and forth. So it conceals SurgeTide a little bit. It's like it's still a SurgeTide, but it's a SurgeTide of, I don't know, icicles or something, rather than there's not the weight behind it because it doesn't have the full arrangement. We could also try exaggerating it. I definitely heard a note in here. Everything just went silent for a second. So when working with a track like this, probably what you're going to want to do is find a node and a rate that seems to work fairly well. And then back off the surge node and just accept the fact that you don't actually hear the surging quality in this case. You go from somewhere like this, where you can just barely hear what it's doing, but then and here it's a little more solid. And we're just stepping on it a little bit, just having a subtle effect. And it's evening out the loudness and sort of filling out that bass, because one of the reasons for SurgeTide at all is it has that capacity of providing this huge bassy throb that also works in snares and things like that as well. And when this one's just nothing but a bassy throb, that's all there is to it, what you get is very similar to what you would have. It just sort of reshapes it a little bit. Puts it in different places. In fact, when it's doing things like I was hearing, where we've got sort of funny artifacts showing up, that little throbby sound, one thing that might help with that is if it's behaving like its artifacts, you might slow the surge rate down. And then we have the effect that we're looking for. So that's SurgeTide. It's a pretty strange little plugin. You know, they can't all be like, ooh, hardware emulation that sounds good and everything. No, some of these are just inventions that aren't going to work for everybody, but I think there are people who will find this downright useful. It does the thing of controlling the sort of size and movement of the sound. It acts kind of like an automatic gain control, and that can help if you're going for ultimate loudness in the output. It'll be able to condition that a little bit so that it hits your loudinators more effectively. And it just has that quality of like being able to concentrate energy into the deep bass and time it in such a way that it has a swing and a momentum to it. I was actually not expecting it to work quite as well on this one, Wiles, because I was thinking, oh, that's a noisy, discombobulated rock epic, and so, but it was not bad at focusing it and setting it in a useful place. So SurgeTide is free. me doing this kind of thing is supported by Patreon, so I will supply a link. You know where to go. But and that's my cat trying to get out. Yes, it is. But SurgeTide, at the time that you see this, will already be out, and you can download it for free and see whether you can get anything useful out of it. See whether the thing that it does is useful to you. Because the way that it responds to dynamics is not really like anything else. That's why it's so hard to use. When sound kicks in, it'll drop it down, and then you really don't get any of the little compressor trying to bring stuff back up at you again. It really does mute stuff very effectively, and then only gradually does it swing back up. So it's especially at low surge rates, it's really, really, really clean, as well as having its sort of dynamic swing. And clean in a way that you can't really get with other compressors unless you were able to somehow multiply them by each other in the middle of, wire them into each other or something. And you can't really do that. But you don't have to with SurgeTide because you can just throw it on whatever mix or instrument that you want, hoping as always that it's going to be like a sort of surging, pulsing, massive sound. I think if you put it on an individual kick drum track, forget it. You're not going to get anything useful out of it at all because it needs more sound to work with. It's really kind of more about two-bus than it is about any individual sound, although you could, of course, use it as an automatic gain control for individual sounds that have very different average volumes. I don't know what to tell you. It's kind of fun, but I think there's a lot of people who will just not get anything useful out of it. So it's a strange little secret weapon. It doesn't react like anybody else's compressor. And it is a free audio unit in Mac and PC VSD because I just make these things sometimes. And go figure, that's just how I roll. There will be more like this. But for today, SurgeTide is the one that I'm putting out. I almost always say I hope you like it. In this case, I have no idea whether you're going to like it. But if you do, yay.